Hi, in this video I'm going to go over some tools for drawing and their uses and do a little bit of gesture drawing. So to get things started, there's so many tools that you can use, from drawing pencils, graphite, charcoal, vine charcoal, compressed charcoal, drawing pens, ballpoint pens. You get the drift. And just your regular old number 2 pencil. So the first thing that I want to do is kind of play with the different tools and see what they do. So right here I have what's called vine charcoal, and it's a really lightweight, not very dense charcoal that is great for laying in ground if you're going to do some subtractive work with charcoal or you're laying in different values. It's also good for gesture drawing, where we draw really fast, and I'll get back to that. It also wipes away if I have a cloth or something, or it erases away really nice too. So vine charcoal is a really great tool for warming up with gesture exercises, things like that. Then there is compressed charcoal, which I don't have. I have a little tiny piece here. This is more dense and actually goes on a little bit darker, as you can see, and it blends again just as nicely as the vine. This actually sticks to your page a little bit more than the vine charcoal, so when you go to erase it, it's not as easy once you blend it into your paper. The reason being, your paper has what's called a tooth, so there's an actual fine texture to it, and when you really get that medium in there, it sticks. So you got to be really careful with it and how you use it. Other things that you'll be using are graphite pencils, and this is just an HB. An HB is a really good one for just really light lines to get the job started. So if you're doing a gesture drawing, you could start with an HB so that you don't get too heavy with your line. A lot of artists, when they're learning how to draw, they might be a little bit heavy-handed, and you don't necessarily want to press too hard into your paper. Graphite pencils and charcoal pencils, they have numbers and letters on them. This is a 4B, and that is a softer pencil than a 2B. So when you start with HB, pull out my HB, where did it go? I have an HB. So HB would be kind of in the middle, and then I would go up sequentially: 2B, 4B, 6B, 8B, 7B, and so on and so forth. As the numbers go up in the B series, the softer the lead, which means it goes on a little bit darker. If I go in the opposite direction and go with H series, 2H, 4H, 6H, they are a harder lead, so it's easy to remember. H for hard, B, maybe the B could be like, think of like the S for soft or rounded soft. The H series, the higher the number, the harder the lead, so the finer, lighter that it will draw. And I typically, when I teach my drawing course, I don't have my students use anything beyond an HB, maybe a 2H, because it's so fine that there's really no point in it. Next thing that you might want to use is a mechanical pencil. Now this has a lead that just extracts, and you replace the leads as you wear them out, and this works very much like a number 2 pencil or like a 2B for its fineness and its darkness. There are, to go with your graphite pencils, there's graphite sticks. So if you needed to lay down a ground in graphite, you could do that. You can blend it in, you can just leave it like this, but this is a nice way to build up the ground or do some shading. that sort of thing. And then you have drawing pens that have different tips to them. This one is actually a brush pen. You can see the little tiny brush. So it actually gets like some nice solid black ink. And then others have different tips. So they'll have like different thicknesses for tips. These can be used for all sorts of ink drawings. This is a 0.05. So they'll come in really, really fine tips. I'm looking for my finest one. To a little bit thicker. Okay, I know I have a 0.002, which is a really fine tip. This is a 0.08, that's thicker. So for any kind of ink drawings, you can do different mark making like hatching, cross hatching, that sort of thing, going across form. Same thing as with pencils. You can draw pretty much the same way. The only thing with ink, can't necessarily erase. So whatever tools that you have for drawing, play with them, see what they do, see what the different leads do, and just see how they look different, and have some fun with it. Different erasers that I use are a kneaded eraser. I love kneaded erasers. These erasers are great because, especially for charcoal drawing, they renew themselves when you stretch them out, and they pick up really nice. Plus, you can draw with them in a pick out method, and you can shape any way that you want to different tips and things like that. If you have more stubborn lead or charcoal that needs to come out, you're going to want a harder eraser. This is a Created Color Monolith. It's flexible rubber. This works really good. You can also use other hard erasers as well, like a pearl eraser or something like that. And that's about it for materials as far as drawing goes. How you use them. So when you're warming up and you just want to, kind of feel your paper, and say you've never drawn anything before, how do you get started? Well, drawing is an observational thing when you're learning. So you can practice doing different mark making, like hatching, learn control. When I do hatching, I keep my lines not too long. Cross hatching is just where they crisscross in different directions. I might play with that just for some control. I might use my pencil on the side to do a little bit of shading. You'll notice my lead on this one is a little bit different, or a lot different, than this one. So this one I use just a regular pencil sharpener. And this one I use an X-Acto blade to sharpen it. And the way to do that is very carefully just noodle away the wood until you reveal as much lead as you want. This is the best way to sharpen charcoal pencils because charcoal pencils are very delicate. They break easily, so you can have a little bit more control. Just remember, you have to have kind of a light touch. Always work away from you when you're sharpening. But when you do this, you open up the potential of your pencil, not just as a tip, and you can sharpen that tip with sandpaper. You get a really nice sharp point. But you can also work on the side a little bit. And if you want to get like a really nice flat edge, again, just use your sandpaper. And this comes in a kit. If you buy a kit like graphite or charcoal, you'll typically get one of these, or you can buy them separately. All pencils, all graphite, all charcoal, you can buy them separate, or you can buy them as a kit. Just depends on your preference. So those are just warm up, you know, play with your different materials, see what they do, practice different marks, squiggles, sketching, whatever you want. Just kind of free flow it, you know, do whatever comes to you so that you're comfortable. As far as gesture drawing is a quick take on things. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, so with gesture drawing, which is basically your introduction into drawing, it's a quick take on any subject matter, whether it's a person, an animal, an object. It's a quick take, basically how it sits in space. So you're capturing the essence without worrying about the details, and you're working really fast. And it's one of the best exercises for getting that hand-eye coordination with drawing. So you're not going to be drawing like really little and tight with no action in your arm or your wrist. You're going to want to be looser. If you can stand up to and have an easel doing this, that's the best way to do it. But one thing you want to do is be comfortable. So if you can have your paper and your drawing board at an angle, I have mine kind of inclined a little bit so that I can open up my arm and open up my wrist more so that I'm not all tight and stiff. I want to be loose and I want to work from my shoulder. And when I look at my objects, I'm just kind of studying them for a minute or a few seconds just to kind of see what they look like. And I'm basically just gonna go with bigger shapes and kind of block it in. And one thing you can do with gesture drawing is you can time yourself. So like set a timer at 30 seconds and see what you're able to capture. Then go work your way up to a minute, then 2 minutes, then 5 minutes for an extended gesture drawing. And keep doing this repetitively, working with all different types of objects with all different shapes, because it's a really good practice to warm you up and break the ice of your page. If I'm just doing gesture drawing, I'm going to use some vine charcoal or something really soft like an ebony pencil. If I'm starting a more involved drawing, I will probably start with either an HB or a 2B graphite pencil. If I'm working in graphite. If I'm working with charcoal, then same thing. Don't want to mix graphite and charcoal too much because they're like oil and water. But if I'm just doing gesture drawing, if I'm just practicing to kind of loosen up, I might time myself, kind of guesstimate how long. You don't want to, you know, be thinking about that. You just want to be responding to what you're looking at. And you don't want to worry about details. So if I'm looking at something, I'm thinking, well, I have a little vase here and I'm just, what's the main shape? And as I draw, I'm kind of thinking of a couple things. I might want to draw a vertical line through the middle so I can build on either side to kind of build up that symmetry if I have an object that is symmetrical from either side of a central axis. So I can go side to side. That helps me control things a little bit more. I'm looking for direction. I'm skimming my page. And I may be drawing in the big shape where everything would fall into place. I'm not worried about detail. So that's basically it. This maybe was 30 seconds. And that's just to get movement, to make a connection with your tools to the paper and what you are seeing. It's not about those little details like the little leaves. If you do a longer gesture drawing, say 5 minutes, 10 minutes, after you've done this, then you can break it down and you can get those next smaller shapes. But when I'm first starting, I might just get something like, I like to start with a center axis on something like this, or if there's some kind of direction to something, But I might just build it up with simple geometric patterns. I'll kind of feel out my ellipses. One thing with ellipses, you never want to do this, where you have like that football thing, where you have these corners. It's round, so it will have a roundness, even if it's a very closed ellipse. So you can practice that. You can even on the bottom practice your ellipse as if it was see-through. And there I'm going towards a minute just working on that, and I'm getting caught up in it. If you feel like you're getting caught up in an area, snap yourself out of it and move on to something else. Just to keep working throughout. And you notice my arm is moving across the page. So that's gesture drawing. This is just one object that I'm showing. You can use many different objects. Kind of play with it. You know, go find foliage, find objects around your house, different like, vases or any fun things, and see what you can do with it. And try it with all of your different tools just to kind of get used to it. And then once you get used to this, if you start every drawing with a gesture, your drawing will get more and more accurate. Even if you're going to do a longer, more serious drawing, start with a really light gesture, because that is the bones of your piece. That's like you're breaking the ice and you're figuring out, you know, how to shift things around, make corrections, things like that, that I will get into in further videos. But this is just break the ice, you know, just kind of, it's a big white sheet of paper and we need to get something on it quickly. So gesture drawing is also, it's not something where you're looking at your page very often. You're looking at your subject matter more than anything and just responding to it and seeing what it does. So as your eye goes around an edge, respond to it. What is it doing? It's as simple as that. As we get into this further, we will talk about other things to tighten up your drawings, even tighten up your gesture drawings with extended gesture. Okay, for a longer gesture drawing, I'm going to start out the same way that I did with my small vase, but now I have something that has a little more complex shape to it, and I want to spend a little bit more time on it, but I'm not going to get caught up in the details. So one thing you want to avoid is working in one spot and then moving on to another spot, finishing each as you go. You want to always think of the whole. What is the big shape? And then break it down. When you do that, you work faster and you'll get more accuracy. So when I'm looking at something, I'm going to study a few things like angles. If I'm looking at my elephant, I am thinking, what angle do I see for an axis line running through the body of it? And I'm kind of seeing this. And then I have, you know, you could almost start with a stick figure and then start building. So I've got lots of circles. And again, I am definitely moving my whole arm from my shoulder as I come around. I'm not worried about exact placement of everything. I'm just responding. If something is, you know, lining up, I might quickly look at that, how things might line up, how things overlap. But I'm doing this super light, and I hope you can see it. I am skimming the page. I'm not worried about pressure yet. And also notice how I am holding my pencil. I'm holding it further back. I'm not holding it like this, because this is like when you're doing penmanship or you're doing fine detail. In order to keep it looser, I'm holding it back like this. just building up. So I've maybe spent, I don't know, a minute there. And now I'm like, well, okay, I want to extend this and I want to go a little bit further. If I'm not comfortable doing this, I might go like this. Is another way I hold my pencil sometimes, depending on how I'm working. As I start getting more detail, well, not detail, but defining edges, say something overlaps another thing and I want to maybe play with pressure to darken an area. If you have a darker line, it comes forward over this, so I can push this back. I might kind of define some of my lines a little bit more. But you can tell it's still pretty sketchy, very loose. I might look at things like where this is on the ground plane to the bottom of here, what angle is that? So there's angles from here to here, front to back. What does that angle look like? How long is the body? I can maybe quickly judge that compared to that. And I have it going way back there, so I would probably bring that in. And a way to help me is, and something we'll get into more in the, later on, is negative space, the space in between. What does that look like? That is a shape that you can draw. You can kind of figure out relationships, shape relationships, looking at negative space in between, especially in an extended gesture. You would never think about this stuff when you're doing a really short 30-second or 1-minute gesture, but you can definitely start thinking about it when you're doing an extended one. This is just an angle from the back to the back of the leg. So right now I'm just they're called searching lines when they're broken like this. You don't want to draw like this, because your mind says that's fixed and it's harder to go in and change it. You would have to erase it. When I gesture draw, I don't use erasers. At this point, I'm just kind of trying to find how it sits in space, tighten up a few things, and leave it. I'm not going to erase anything. I'm keeping my lines open and broken, and those are searching lines. And they're very light, so it allows my mind to say, I can fix that, I can move that, I can adjust it, or they're also called adjustment lines. So as I search my subject, I'm looking at plane changes maybe, where one surface changes direction. That would be maybe a soft edge a little bit. You can hear my pencil. If I can hear it and I'm moving fast, that tells me that I am drawing quick. I'm not tightening up and getting all worried about that stuff. So at this point, that's enough gesturing. So the next step would be to refine some of the edges. I may be pulling out the eraser at this point to kind of get rid of unwanted sketch marks and then tighten it up a little bit more. I might bring this in more. I might bring this more vertical. I might drop the ear down. You can spend a lot of time on a gesture drawing because you're going through and you're asking yourself questions when you look at your subject matter that you are drawing, that you are spending more time looking at. when you come back to this, does it look like what you see? If not, where is it not working? And try and fix it. Problem solve. See how you can fix that. You can play with the weight of your line. So you have pressure and then you can lighten, pressure, lighten. So if you have a light source or you have a really soft edge, you could lighten your line in those areas where light is hitting it. And then where there's shadow, you might want to darken the line. Things that are like underneath, if there's a light source coming down on it, your lines up here might be lighter than they are down here. In time, you will respond to that. As you get faster at this, as you get better and more accurate drawings, you'll get comfortable with it and you'll be able to think of those things. So, and that's it for an extended gesture. It's not very far. This is maybe 5 minutes. You can go longer, but basically practice, time like 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and 5 minutes. And do a whole bunch of them. And you don't have to go this big. You could do like little drawings. Think like start with a stick figure, start building up with geometric shape if that's your preference, or kind of flow through this and just have fun, because this is just a warm-up. It's not meant to be perfect at this point. You're just starting. So if you have been drawing for a while and you're very comfortable with this, it'll show. But there might be some things habits you might want to break, like getting caught up in details, like I want to finish the head before I even do anything over here. You should always look for the big. Even this is like two big circles together, and then these are extensions, and then they have relationships, finding angles, things like that. Will help guide you through it, because all in all, this has one big shape that it sits in. That's kind of geometric, and you can find that shape. That could be the first thing that you do, or you can start with axis lines, which are like building up the stick figure, just like we did with the base. You can start with a center axis line and then build around it. And you can practice ellipses, like on whole page. So there's lots of fun things that you can do just to warm yourself up. When we get further into more involved drawings, you will always be starting with the gesture drawing, so to break the ice, but you'll go lightly. You don't have to go as dark as I did here. So have fun, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with.